Welcome to the Real Business Lifetime Lessons podcast, where Carolina business leaders get real about growth, grit, and leadership. I'm Josh Busbey, your All American agent with Lifetime Insurance Agency, and this is White Coat Conversations, in depth discussions with healthcare and wellness leaders who are making an impact across the Carolinas. My guest today is Dr. Kelly Kennedy, the founder and owner of Modern Wellness Family Counseling in Spartanburg, South Carolina. Kelly is a PhD trained marriage and family therapist, professor, and entrepreneur who grew her practice from 6 clinicians to nearly 30 employees in just a few short years. She's passionate about building strong client relationships, supporting the next generation of therapists, and navigating the evolving mental health landscape with authenticity and vision. Kelly, thank you so much for taking time to be on my podcast episode. I'm very excited to have you.
Absolutely. Yeah, glad to be here, Josh.
All right, let's dive into some mental health.
Okay.
So you launched your group practice in May 2020, right in the heart of COVID. Looking back, what was the scariest moment and what gave you the courage to keep moving forward?
Yeah, so that certainly, as many people during COVID, wasn't the plan to launch a business during a pandemic. I would say the scariest moment, if many of you remember, April of 2020 really was kind of at the height of fear of the pandemic, and people weren't going anywhere. I remember at the time, I didn't even go for my checkup at the doctor. It was just fear of getting COVID, of what was going to happen. And so how that translated into a business is that we weren't getting referrals. We were not getting many calls. We weren't getting many referrals. And it certainly felt like all of the marketing we had done leading up to opening a business wasn't happening. So that definitely was a scary feeling.
Absolutely. I know for me, I was right smack dab in the middle of my second deployment, right at the start of COVID, and we were on lockdown and there for another 5 months, and just trying to navigate through all the changes and everything going on, and trying to get a counseling session with my therapist back home just to try to deal with everything going on in my life, personal and professional. I can't imagine launching a business.
Yeah. And I think everybody at the time struggled in their own way. Some of it was a struggle nationwide as far as feeling isolated. And I think some of it was specific to each of us as individuals or in our business or profession.
Yeah, absolutely. You started your psychology journey because of a high school lunch schedule, and it led to a PhD, professorship, and now a thriving practice. What kept you hooked on this field?
As you mentioned, I got interested in psychology in a high school psychology class that I signed up for to have lunch with my boyfriend. But what I did not anticipate was that I would love the material. I was engaged. I was really interested. And as I got to college, I was just fascinated by psychology. Felt like something that I didn't have to study for. Anytime I was in it, I just wanted to read it. It didn't feel like work. Going into graduate school, I really explored a lot of different areas, but working directly with clients was always something that was interesting to me, and especially thinking about clients within the system that they grow up in. And so that is why I decided to go the marriage and family therapy route rather than individual counseling, just because individuals live in families, they live in systems, they work in systems. So there's a lot of contextual information that helps me do what I do, even if I work with individuals. Going to graduate school, I grew as a professional, but I would definitely say I grew a lot personally. I know a lot of people have that experience in graduate school, but it really changed how I viewed families and how I viewed systems.
What were some early leadership lessons you learned going from professor to program director almost overnight?
My first job out of school was working as an assistant professor at Converse University. And I really enjoyed it. We were a small program at the time, and we had a program director that actually took another job. And so I became program director within about 3 to 6 months. And so that was fun.
That's a quick transition, I'm sure.
Yeah. What did I learn? I will say I learned I'm very good at organization, and that was a skill that I've had. So that was valuable. That was helpful. As a program director, there's honestly a lot of paperwork, which is not fun, but that was super helpful. I will say skills that I had to learn. I had to learn how to have uncomfortable conversations, and I had to learn that they're uncomfortable for most people. Confrontation with students is not always easy, but it's necessary. It's part of being an authentic person. Things aren't always flowers and rainbows all the time, and
Yeah,
that's life.
that's for
If
sure.
that's the way I'm showing up, that's probably inauthentic. And so that was something that was really uncomfortable early on that I feel a lot more confident about now. So I would say that was a big learning curve for me. I also learned very quickly in uncomfortable conversations that sometimes saying less is more. I used to get very tense in those conversations, and I would almost over explain, which is not helpful for two reasons. One is that the person sitting with you might not feel heard if you're
Yeah,
talking too much. But also, too, the person, when they feel heard, they a lot of times give you content that's helpful. So if I'm trying to understand why someone's not showing up to class and I lecture them about being in class, a lot of times I don't understand the problem behind it. I don't
where they're coming
understand
from.
that, yeah, I don't understand that their car is breaking down every day and that they can't afford to fix it. Or I can't understand that maybe they have ADHD and like they really struggle with time management. So
Absolutely.
those are a couple things I think early on that created a big growth curve for me.
Yeah. The best way to learn things is just experience, trial and error, learning from mistakes. And obviously, the more people you've talked to and the experiences you've had kind of has perfected your craft more into where it is today.
Uh, I think so. I'm still growing. I'm still
Yeah.
learning. For anybody else out there looking to become a leader, Radical Candor was a really helpful book for me. It talks a lot about authentic leadership. It talks a lot about caring personally for people, but also being honest with people and that those can coexist with each other. I really grew a lot learning from that book. I also learned a lot from understanding, even at Converse, even though as a program director,
Yeah.
understanding the business behind anything that we do, and that if we don't have a profitable business, we don't have a healthy business. So also making decisions that are financial, which is a little opposite of what most therapists do. We tend to be very caring, empathic individuals. And so learning to make decisions that are financially responsible too, I think
Yeah.
is important.
I've been in the military 15 years now and then served in a leadership role probably the last half of my military career. Still learning every day. I learn something every time I get a new soldier under my wing, and everything like that. So I totally get what you're talking about. Let's talk about client relationships and trust. You've mentioned the importance of finding the right fit between therapist and client. How do you build trust with new clients in those early sessions?
Yes, especially when we're talking about clients, we have to come into it knowing that we don't have any relationship built up with them. And so a lot of times early on, it's not just what we verbally say, but what our behavior communicates as well. I am someone, um, I guess this is just very Kelly. I am someone who is almost always on time. I showed up a couple late today, and I absolutely knew I showed up a couple minutes late today.
Yeah.
That's just how my brain works. But I think building trust with a client is communicating clearly, being consistent. Many clients come to therapy because they're looking for consistency. They're looking for someone who's not a part of their world, who's going to show up for them and be present with them. It's little things like I didn't realize till I heard from other people that sometimes therapists answer their phone in session.
Yeah.
That doesn't happen for me. So it's really communicating with the client that they're my priority in that hour.
And as I mentioned on our previous call, I've been in therapy all my life, and I've had the same therapist since 2017. And we kind of talked a little bit about it's great to have your inner circle of people that you trust and confide in and everything like that. But it's also really beneficial to have a therapist that is, one, unbiased. And y'all, I have to give y'all props. I mean, y'all have way better memory than I do. My therapist today can mention something that I talked about in 2019. So I just think it's credible what y'all do.
Yeah. And we take notes, and that's part of record keeping, and we reference our notes. Like those are significant for us. It's not just an administrative practice. Those are things that we refer back to because we want to be able to track our clients. We want to be able to follow what's happening. I'm typically, not all therapists jot down things in session, but I do because those names are important, dates are important.
Language is something you value in therapy. How do you coach your team on the words and tone they use with clients?
Great question. This may not be the answer you're expecting, but we train clinicians a lot to use the language that their clients use.
Okay.
Obviously, not the same language if it's offensive or something like that, but meaning can change from person to person. And so if I were to say the word triggered, that's kind of a buzzword in counseling right now. A lot of people think about triggered and they think about maybe a past trauma they've had or something they've experienced. And a trigger might be something that brings up those memories for them. So for a long time in the academic world, we said we need to give people trigger warnings. We're about to show a very sensitive video and you might be triggered.
Yeah.
Well, some people use trigger to mean it triggers trauma. But I have some students that are like, I don't have trauma. A trigger is anything that's going to make me upset. So I try with clients to use their language because I'm most likely to get the meaning correct if I'm going with what they're giving.
No, that absolutely makes sense. Like you said, there are people out there that do not have childhood traumas or, let's say, PTSD or something like that. So you got to adapt to their language or the language they use. That's a good point. Many of your clients likely come from vulnerable times. How do you balance compassion with maintaining professional boundaries?
Yeah, so it's not easy. It is complex, and it's something that I think most clinicians learn over time if they're not going to burn out in their field. Because if we're taking home clients' issues, that's a lot of weight to carry personally outside of our jobs. I also think it's not ethical or fair to our next client if we're bringing in the previous client's stuff into session. The past hour, I've been helping a client who's depressed, and I'm thinking about that client in my next session. I'm probably doing my next client a disservice. A lot of people have different practices of how they create that emotional boundary. For me, I don't share a whole lot about myself personally with my clients. You know, we may from time to time, if we're trying to give an example to a client or we have a specific reason, but my clients don't typically know my weekend plans or anything that I'm doing. So I think that sends a clear professional message that, you know, I'm there to help them. They're not there to help me or to be my friend. We're there to work through whatever they're bringing in for therapy. Another couple of things for me is that when I do keep documentation, I try to finish that documentation before I leave for the day. Just staying mentally present, that work is work. And when I go home, it's shifting. And then also personally for me, I enjoy working out. There's nothing like a 2-minute wall sit that will take your mind off everything but your burning quads.
Yeah.
That's a little bit of a reset for me between work and home a lot of times. But I think as clinicians, we all form some sort of self-care practice that creates that boundary.
I myself am a very avid gym goer. So it's almost like it's probably my top coping mechanism. If I don't go to the gym, then all hell breaks loose.
Yeah. Well, and there's actually some interesting research that was looking at clients that took an SSRI, which is like an antidepressant like Prozac, versus working out 3 days a week. And they had about the same effect on the body. So yeah, I do tell my clients, like, behavioral activation is what we call it in our field. Like, it is a thing and it does affect our mood. So for a lot of clients that are resistant to medication, They don't always like when I talk about starting to exercise. Research shows it actually impacts our mood significantly.
Wow, I didn't know that. That's fascinating. Little little fact. All right, let's get into modern wellness family counseling and how you have not only opened a practice but grown it to as big as it is in the last 5 years and has, been very successful. So you scaled from 6 to nearly 30 employees in just a few years. By the way, congratulations. That's incredible work and accomplishment and everything like that. What were the key decisions that allowed you to grow sustainably?
That's a great question. I think I say that every time you ask a question.
I'm hitting you with the good questions today.
All right. That's right. I think one was having a clear roadmap for where I wanted to go. I see a lot of people in our field just happen to have too many referrals and they decide that they might want to hire someone, and it feels like day by day they're making up their business plan. And I was leaving my full-time job at Converse as a department chair. And so I knew that I needed to be able to sustain my income. I needed to be able to sustain the livelihoods of my employees, and that I took that responsibility very seriously. So when I opened, I did start with a firm business plan. I did set aside some money. I did borrow some money, which I thankfully paid back within a couple of years, but I wanted to make sure that I was investing in what I was doing. And I was, from a mindset perspective, I was confident that I could do it. Like, I could envision what success looked like, and I could picture what that meant for me. And over time, that meant having locations in Spartanburg and Greenville. Those were two areas. A lot of my vision was around having a practice that was insurance-based and accessible, but didn't feel like a state-run agency or a hospital, both for clients and clinicians. A lot of clinicians in our field are overworked. They don't have flexible schedules. They have caseloads. I've heard of 60 to 70 clients. And when you talk about good therapy and your therapist remembering your story, it's hard to remember 70 people's stories.
Oh my God, yeah.
And so the shift for me was wanting to create something different, which in the business world, you have to think in your business plan about what you're offering that's not already offered.
Yeah. You gotta think outside the box for sure. Because not only think outside the box, but think of things that other, let's say, counseling centers have not thought of. And the more variety you can provide, the more successful, and especially other ways that you can help so many other people.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah. This is a good one for you. What advice would you give to other small business owners in healthcare who want to scale without losing their mission?
What advice would I give? This is not unique business advice, but if there's someone
It's your
who
advice.
if somebody hasn't started a business before, the most helpful thing for me was thinking systemically and thinking about patterns that are sustainable with growth over time. And unfortunately, as you scale a business, systems that work as a small business don't work as a moderate business, and systems as a moderate business don't work as a larger business. And so there are things, an example for us might be getting clients who call in wanting counseling. When we were a small business, they got me on the phone and I got to match them with a clinician and talk through that process with them.
Yeah.
Right now, we have roughly 700 clients. I can't manage all those clients. We've moved to the place of having a client care manager, and that's that person's job. All she does is think about the need of our clients and try to match them up with clinicians. And she knows every clinician in both locations so that when she's matching our clients, she knows who she's matching them with. She knows, wow, this person wants a clinician that will move slow, that's going to be gentle. She can think exactly whose personality might work well for that client. So we do have to adapt a system. And I've also learned if anything doesn't work for several people in your practice, it doesn't work. Like, you as the business owner, you need to not have a pity party, and you just need to move on and revamp. You just need to redo it or figure it out, or come up with a solution. And that's your job. As a business owner, that is my job. If something's not working, I have to figure out how to make it work.
Absolutely. Because no one else can other than you. Have you had any mentors along the way as far as your business owners or someone that has helped you through your process of opening and growing your practice?
Yes, two people stick out to me. One was a career coach that I
Mm-hmm.
hired and paid. Her name's Melissa Walker, and she works with a lot of people in academia who are ready to try something different. And I wanted to be really intentional about what I was going to do and why. I mean, she really was helpful in that process early on. And then as far as specific to what I do, I have a friend who basically does the same thing I do in another state. And I would say at this point, we're probably mentors for each other. But early
Yeah.
on, she really paid it forward. You know, she gave me a lot of advice. She was a sounding board. She would talk about her process if I was looking for
Mm-hmm.
a good system for my practice. And she didn't charge me a dime. She
That's
walked me
awesome.
through it, and I really appreciated her.
It's great to not only have, such a strong friendship, selfless person to want you to be successful, did that without, charging you a dime or anything. That's
Yeah,
incredible.
yeah, and I think it's that, I don't know in your field if they use this, but we talk about having an abundance mindset of being able to share knowledge and experience and
Yeah.
expertise with other people who are in different stages of their career, and also understanding that
Hmm.
that's not a threat to you, that there
Yeah.
or the need for any mental health practices. Things like BetterHelp used to be intimidating to me because they have endless budgets, right? Like their marketing
Yeah.
budget, probably hundreds of thousands of dollars. And I can't compete with that, but
Yeah.
that's also okay because not everybody's looking for that kind of corporate experience. Some people are
Hmm.
looking for something different.
Yeah.
So I think having that mindset shift is helpful.
Yeah. And it definitely falls into the me being as an insurance agent world, not only with other agents or my my peers, but clients as well. I love what I do for many reasons. And one of those reasons is I love educating people. I also love educating other agents as well. There's four of us in our agency and we all work together. We all want each other to improve. We celebrate the small victories and just we're really tight knit group. And so it definitely falls into my world for sure.
Yeah, that's right. And the idea too that you're not going to be able to serve every client. And so,
Yeah.
seeing your colleagues have a win can be a wonderful
Yeah.
thing.
It only improves their confidence and, satisfaction of not only helping the client out, and getting excited about that. It just proves more that this is what they're meant to do is to help people and build relationships. How do you keep your team aligned and supported, especially in a field where burnout can be common?
It's a complex answer for sure. And I mainly say that because I think different clinicians have different needs. A lot of times when I'm talking to clinicians, it feels like when our personal lives are in line, we can deal with a lot more professional stress.
Hmm.
When our professional lives are in line, we can deal with a lot more personal stress. But it's when the two are out of whack, that seems to be a recipe for burnout.
Yeah.
And it's probably like that for many professions, and so I think there's definitely a piece of that. There's a piece of supporting employees who need extra support. If somebody in our practice needs to leave to have their own therapy, we're fine with that. If
Yeah.
someone needs something for themselves, we're fine with that. We give people adequate time off. As clinicians, we not only need off holidays, we need off personal time too. So
Yeah.
I think just giving adequate time to like recharge, rest, do whatever they need to do. And we have time off because we don't ever need to know why people are off. I think there's an element for us too of we don't need to micromanage people, give an expectation because we want to have fair rules that apply across the board. We don't want to privilege one person over another. We have a basic trust that as long as people are staying within their guidelines, they're doing what they need to do for themselves.
That's incredible that not only do you provide as much support for your employees and everything, but they do so much for you. So it's incredible for you to give back and do all that for them.
And then honestly, our employees, they give a lot to me. I need something, or if I need time off, right? Like if I need time off, our team is really respectful of that. So I think when you're willing to put that out for them, then they're willing to give that back. So I definitely think that is part of having a supportive culture as a practice.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Future of mental health and innovation. Let's talk about that a little bit. So you mentioned researching AI for note writing and admin support. What excites you most about the potential of technology in mental health care, and what worries you the most?
Well, and I definitely see both sides of it. I know we
Hmm.
shared before that we haven't quite taken the AI jump yet.
Yeah,
There's AI software available to listen to your entire session and write a session note with HIPAA compliant software.
that's insane how far technology has come.
I think for us, there's still our ethical bodies for our professions for counseling and marriage and family therapy. They've just put out statements on AI. And so I think for our practice, we want to see our professional organization catch up with clear expectations. We want to see a little bit more security for clients. It's scary to think about something listening in to a session.
Yeah.
And I think, yeah, and I think as software develops further, I think there will be more trust that's
Hmm.
created. For example, we use medical record software. All of that has to be on a cloud as well. And there's trust built with those companies that work with medical providers, whether it's a doctor or clinician. But there's definitely an uneasiness for clients still thinking about a program listening to their entire session. So we're in a very personal, intimate profession using a very impersonal programming. So it's a little bit of a tough area. However, I will say that for clinicians, a lot of the administrative work behind what we do can contribute to burnout. And I do think long term, AI is going to help us actually be more present in session because we're not having to spend so much time just documenting what we've already done. I definitely see that as an area that most practices will be moving toward. So I definitely see the potential for that. I already do use the dreaded Chat GPT to sometimes
Yeah,
give me what I need that doesn't have to do with clients. But I can tell it things like, I'm looking for a domestic violence shelter in the upstate, and it will spit stuff out to me. I can use it for things that don't have client information. So there are
absolutely.
ways we're already using it, I think, as a practice to help inform our treatment with our clients.
Yeah. And it's fascinating, but kind of scary at the same time about how accurate ChatGPT is and just the things that it can do.
Yes. One of my friends recently put her, she journal and she documents her journal, like she has it electronic. And Chat GPT told her what her goals in life should be. And she said it was scarily accurate. I was like, wow,
Just,
that's
wow.
scary. But yeah, I think there are certainly advantages. I definitely take with some level of caution, though, as a business owner.
Yeah. Dr. Kelly, where do you see the mental health field in the Carolinas heading over the next 5 to 10 years?
I don't know for sure, but I hate saying this, but I do wonder if we're going to be a little bit like the field of physical therapy, where a
Hmm.
lot of group practices were bought out by larger hospitals or organizations. That is something I'm starting to see in our field. I don't know if that trend will continue, but that's
Hmm.
certainly a possibility. I definitely see growth. I think as more information comes out about mental health, we understand that more likely than not, most of us are going to have some sort of mental health issue come up at some point in our lives. And especially this younger generation, I think has normalized counseling as a practice that's helpful and healthy. A lot of people will use the phrase like mental health is health. So I
Yeah.
do think we're going to see a little bit more um, normalcy about seeking out mental health services,
Yeah.
which we've already started to see that shift, but I think we'll continue to see
Hmm.
that happen.
Yeah. It's only going to grow from here for sure. And I know that we've previously talked about one of the reasons why I'm excited, and I know you were excited to do this podcast, especially is because we are trying to get our message out there, especially your message out there about mental health and how important it is. And like I told you before, mental health has a very special place in my heart. I feel like everybody can benefit from some type of therapy in their life. I benefited it, you know, throughout my entire life, from personal experiences to professional experiences to the military. You know, a lot of people, it seems like you're just in this dark place and there's no way out of it. But we're trying to get our message across that there is a light at the end of the tunnel. There are people there to help you. The more we talk about it, the more that people are hopefully going to connect with our listeners and just inspire people to get the help that they are needing.
Yeah. And hopefully, it reaches a different audience. A
Yeah.
lot of times, mental health is something that we talk to a lot of our young people about, and they hear it, from the moment they're in school. My 10-year-old
Yeah.
child already knows who the counselor is in their school. Their counselor normalizes coming to talk to them if they need anything. So I think very different, though, for maybe some of your audience that hasn't ever utilized mental health services or hasn't known about it. So for sure.
Yeah. All right, let's talk about your employees a little bit more. With nearly 30 employees, how do you foster a culture where your staff feels cared for, both professionally and personally?
But the couple of things I'll say is that one of the things that we have done over the past couple of years is develop some company values. And I don't like company values that you stick on a board and never talk about. But our company values are in our company evaluations. They're how people get promoted. They're things that I bring up in every meeting, and I hold myself accountable to those. So if I make a change in our practice, a lot of times I go back to our values to reference why that change needs to happen.
Yeah.
So I think living that out and being transparent about it is really helpful. The other thing I would say is that my employees are not my friends. I really care about them. And I have to keep in mind that if I couldn't do it for every employee, then I can't do it for any employee. I just think it's important to foster fairness, which is one of our company values. But a lot of that goes into, making sure my professional colleagues are my professional colleagues.
Yeah. That's hugely important. If you give special treatment to one person, you got to give special treatment to everybody. It shows you're a strong leader that you have to have those boundaries.
Yeah.
As a leader, how do you balance financial sustainability with offering support and resources that matter to your employees?
It's hard because you want to offer your employees everything. You really do. And I think a lot of business owners are like this. I have one employee, and I love her. If she ever listens to this podcast, she'll know who she is. Whenever I give our employees a new benefit, she's always thinking of the next benefit that she's going to ask for. I told her, I said, you're always making sure I'm holding you. Oh, I'm thinking of the employees. I'm holding you all accountable.
Yeah.
But I've gotten much smarter over time at really understanding when I can offer employees benefits and when I can't because of financial sustainability. And our field, like mine, is very specific. I understand in my field that my profit margin needs to be 10 to 15% to be healthy. And so if we're not there, the answer is no.
Yeah.
It's a hard no. And I'm very transparent with them about our profit margin. I don't know if some businesses are, but I'm very transparent that we need to be in a healthy place for you to keep a job and for us to keep a business.
Absolutely. I mean, to be as successful as you are, you got to set that bar high, and you can't settle.
Yeah. And I also know as a business owner, if that bar is unreasonable, if I'm making 25% profit, I'm probably not taking care of my employees the way I need to.
Yeah.
That's way more money than I need to be making. At that point, too, I have to do the self-evaluation of, do I need to be paying my employees more? So I think you can tip the scale either way.
What's the biggest lesson entrepreneurship has taught you about yourself?
Yeah, I really have to think about that. I think I have a good balance as a leader between being empathic and connecting with people and also being respected. I see a lot of leaders that are feared, and that's not a good place to be in. And I see a lot of leaders that are not respected and their boundaries are pushed a lot. I used to get the feedback from people that I was intimidating, and I used to think, no, I'm not intimidating. Like, what do you mean? Now I actually really respect that because I
Yeah.
do feel like there's a healthy level of respect that you need to have for a leader. And I think that that's important, that your employees can look up to you in that way. And I'm
Mhm.
certainly not perfect with that. That's kind of like a constant growth area, is like leading and also trusting and delegating. Not
Yeah.
always leading, like sometimes delegating off to other people, but that's something I feel pretty confident about overall.
So kind of piggybacking off that, if you could go back to your first year and practice ownership, what advice would you give yourself?
None of my employees would like to hear this, but I would not have given them as many benefits as I did early on. So I definitely said yes too often. I had a lot of thankfulness or gratitude for my first employees. It's hard to get employees when you don't have an established business. I a lot of times said yes when I didn't actually do the financial work that I needed to do to know that I could say yes. And obviously it all turned out okay, but
Yeah.
I would have been a little bit more financially responsible.
No, that makes perfect sense. And I'm sure even your employees will understand listening to this and hearing that answer, especially if it all paid off at the end to where you are today and with your business.
Right, right. And we are fine now, and they
Yeah.
still have their like nothing got taken away from them. It definitely was a learning curve for me of, when you offer your employees retirement, what that actually means and looks like. And it's a significant amount of money every year.
Yeah. When it comes to how you personally measure a success today, whether it's with yourself or your business, is it growth, impact, balance, or something else?
It's probably impact. I think, you don't really get into mental health without caring about mental health.
Yeah.
And, there are a lot of stories that clinicians share. There's stories that clients tell me, they're really meaningful and they really are impactful. So the idea of us serving a wider audience is very meaningful. So I
Yeah.
would say impact.
The reason why we're doing this podcast episode is to hopefully make an impact on our listeners and everything when it comes to mental health. So if our listeners wanted to connect with you or find out more about Modern Wellness Family Counseling, where can our listeners follow you?
Sure. So we do have accounts on social media, on Facebook and Instagram. If you're looking up Modern Wellness Family Counseling, we should pop up. We also online, if you wanted to request an appointment or reach out, it's just www.modernwellnessfamilycounseling.com. And I did mention earlier, we have a client care coordinator. So anyone that reaches out to us should hear from us within 1 to 2 business days.
Awesome. Incredible stuff. Well, Dr. Kelly, thank you so much for being on this episode of White Coat Conversations. Greatly appreciate it. I had a lot of fun talking about mental health. And speaking of mental health, we're trying to connect with our listeners. So just know that you're not alone if you're ever in a dark spot. There's always help out there. Of course, you got to do the work, but there's resources out there. There's a light at the end of the tunnel. Please allow people to get you the help that you need because you aren't alone.
Absolutely. Thank you, Josh.
Thank you. And again, I am your host, Josh Busbey. This is White Coat Conversations, or as I like to call, White Coat Wednesdays. Have a great week.